Tonight, heading home.
I didn't mind the city, I just missed my home in my bed.
Which communities evacuees are returning to as the wildfire situation shows more signs of improvement. Also tonight, a pricey delivery.
The weight is still a bit heavy since Canadian health is really expensive.
How much this couple is expecting to pay out of pocket with health insurance not covering their child's birth. Plus, rolling up their sleeves.
There are teams that are cross-trained to take care of multiple issues at once.
New City teams hit the streets with a mandate to speed up repairs.
CTV News. Live from downtown Winnipeg with Marilee Caruso.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm John Hendricks. Marilee is away. There's new hope for wildfire evacuees tonight. Over the weekend, hundreds were given the green light to return to their communities. And now thousands in Cross Lake are on their way home. CTV's Jeff Keel joins us now. And Jeff, this must be a relief for those who have been staying in hotels and shelters for the last few weeks.
Yes, they say Winnipeg is great, but home is better. Buses fill a section of this Winnipeg hotel parking lot as evacuees from Pimicikamak Cree Nation, also known as Cross Lake, pack up and get ready to head to the airport, going home for the first time since wildfires forced them out in late May.
It feels good. Don't really like the hotel life though. I've been moving around a lot lately. Can't wait to go back home to my bed.
It's not just his bed Antoine Kestrel is looking forward to seeing. Some family dogs are with a shelter organization.
I have to try to contact them to send my dog and my brother's dog back to Cross Lake.
As it's deemed safe to do so, more people are being allowed to return to their communities.
And I'm happy to let folks know that some people have returned home and more Manitobans will be heading home today and in the coming days and weeks.
With a population of around 7,000 in Cross Lake and many of them scattered across Manitoba and even in Ontario, it will take some time for everyone to make it back.
We had about 10 chartered flights that are ready to take our people home as well.
Still, Chief David Monius says there was a lot of relief.
There was a lot of laughter, a lot of smiles, and a lot of hugs, and a lot of handshakes, and seeing the people, they're just excited to go home. Winnipeg's great, but home is better.
There are still thousands not yet able to go home, like those from Flin Flon, but there are signs that could change. The city says workers at critical businesses are re-entering to clean and restock shelves, and the mayor says there are efforts to get hospital staff back in place too.
I think there's a lot of hope, and we can seriously think about going back, but they're just not ready yet.
We can also tell you the province says highways 374 and 373 to Cross Lake are now reopened.
So, Jeff, for those who are still displaced, are there any evacuees that are still sleeping on cots in a congregate shelter?
Yes, the province says around 40 people in Winnipeg and 150 in Thompson. And to note, 25 communities are still evacuated.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Officials are expecting more wildfire activity in the coming days, even after the precipitation our province received over the weekend.
However, the amounts of precipitation have varied, so we are going to see fire activity continue to pick up in the days ahead as those areas dry out.
Additionally, officials say a band of lightning moved across the province over the weekend, which likely means more fires popping up in the coming days. They say that there have been a number of new starts in the past 24 hours, but none are of concern at the moment. The fire south of Cranberry Portage is also no longer out of control. There are currently 18 active wildfires, 3 fewer than Friday, with 7 considered out of control. Wildfire evacuees have been out of their homes for weeks now. Now, this also means they've been away from their doctors and other medical supports. Now, that's why Manitoba Blue Cross is offering to help out. The insurance company is offering evacuees free counseling sessions and access to virtual health care services. If any of wildfire evacuees need mental health support, they can get that too, up to 3 in-person or virtual counseling sessions with Blue Cross's Employee Assistance Program. They can also use the company's virtual go-to-doctor team for some medical issues such as infections, rashes, and allergies. Blue Cross says it will also help evacuees find additional supports if needed. To a developing story now, we're learning from RCMP about a crash on the West Perimeter Highway. At this hour, police are rerouting southbound traffic on the perimeter at the Portage Avenue overpass. Police say that there's been a crash involving several vehicles. There's no word on any injuries, although RCMP say emergency medical services and the fire department are on the scene. Now, RCMP are warning there will be big delays on the West Perimeter, so avoid driving there if possible. CTV News has a crew on its way, and we'll update you as soon as we have more information. We'll also be posting all the latest on our website, ctvwinnipeg.ca. Crown prosecutors have stayed child sex charges against the chief of a Manitoba First Nation. And a warning now, some of the details in this story may be disturbing. The province and provincial court says charges of sexual assault, sexual interference, and possessing and making child pornography were stayed Friday against Christopher Travers. Travers was the leader of Lake St. Martin First Nation when he was arrested last October. He was accused of forcing an 8-year-old girl into a bathroom at his home, taking photos of her and sexually assaulting her in 2023. He pleaded not guilty and has maintained his innocence during the trial, which began in March. In an email, the Crown's office tells CTV News that based on new information presented at trial, it was determined it was no longer appropriate to proceed with the case. A 36-year-old man is facing a long list of charges after an hours-long armed standoff in the city's Point Douglas area on Saturday. It all started around 5 in the morning when police were dispatched to a report of shots fired at a house. No one was injured, but police say the accused then hunkered down under the Disraeli Bridge and refused to drop his shotgun or surrender. Now that led to a 10-hour standoff involving the police service's crisis negotiation unit, tactical support, river patrol, drone unit, and others. Pedestrian, vehicle, and boat traffic was also diverted.
Negotiators did provide water to this person over the course of the negotiation period. And at the end of the day, at approximately 3:23 p.m., TST was safely able to take this person into custody.
The suspect is now facing several firearms-related charges, along with charges related to parole violations and being unlawfully at large. A pregnant woman will have to pay thousands of dollars to have her baby here in Manitoba after being denied health coverage. CTV News first reported on this situation back in February, and now with the baby's due date less than 2 weeks away, we have an update for you. CTV's Danton Unger joins us now live. So Danton, why is this woman being denied health coverage?
Well, because she's still waiting for her permanent residence to be approved, John. And despite the fact that she's married to a Manitoba resident and the child she's carrying will be a Canadian citizen, she's been told there's nothing the province can do.
Actually our daughter.
Nika and Andrew Worth are expecting their first child, a baby girl, at the end of the month.
We're about to be parents soon.
The couple met last year while Nika was visiting Canada from the Philippines. They fell in love and got married in September. Shortly after, they found out their little family was about to grow. But the problem is Nika is here on an extended visitor visa until her permanent residence is approved. And according to the province, that means she's not eligible for health coverage, despite the fact she's married to a Manitoba resident and the child she's carrying will be a Canadian citizen.
We are at the last stretch. I'm 9 months pregnant, and no matter what, we will be taken care of. But it's just that we want to fight for what's fair.
Now here's the catch. According to the province, the spouse of a work permit holder would be covered even if that spouse only has a visitor record, while the spouse of a Canadian citizen would not. The couple took their case to the Manitoba Health Appeal Board, but it was dismissed, with the board saying, unfortunately, the specific wording found within the Act does not allow for health benefits to be extended to the spouse until they're determined to be a resident. All this means the cost of Nika's pregnancy is coming out of pocket.
So far, we've spent like $5,000 outside the hospital.
As for the actual delivery, a single night in hospital will cost Nika nearly $6,000. And if there's any complications, a night in the ICU would cost them $16,000. Altogether, in order to bring their baby home, Nika and Andrew are expecting to pay more than $20,000.
We would just have to pay it off like you pay off a car. You know, some people take on debt if they need a new car or something, we're going to have to take on debt to have a child in Canada, which seems almost ludicrous.
Now, Nick and Andrew say they've had to take out a line of credit from the bank to try and cover some of these costs. And as one last Hail Mary, they've launched a GoFundMe page to try and cover some of those costs with the due date less than 2 weeks away. The one silver lining to this is they say they've confirmed the baby will be covered by Manitoba Health.
So, Dan, what's Manitoba Health saying about all this?
Well, John, we reached out to the health minister for comment. I got an email from a cabinet communications spokesperson saying Manitoba provides insurance based on residency status, which is determined by the federal government. And they say if the federal government determines that you're a resident, then you'd be covered by Manitoba Health.
All right, thanks, Danton. A reminder now that you may need to find an alternate way to get home this week if your commute takes you down Keniston Boulevard. Starting this evening at 7 p.m., all southbound lanes between Lawson Crescent and Rothwell Road will be closed until 6 a.m. tomorrow for street construction and maintenance at the rail line crossing near IKEA. Drivers are being asked to use a detour from Sterling Lion Parkway to Waverly Street. The northbound lanes will be closed Tuesday from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. Wednesday. Drivers are asked to use the detour at McGillivray Boulevard to Waverly Street. The work is expected to be finished June 18th. And CTV weather specialist Colleen Brady joins us now with your first look at your Skywatch evening forecast. And looks like there could be some active weather on the way.
That's the thing. After some relative inactivity in southern Manitoba, it's been pretty stable around these parts. It looks like that's going to change, and that's already been the case throughout much of the day today. Let's take a look first, though, through the Bathfitter Live Eye. Bathfitter, your bath and shower experts for more than 40 years. In Winnipeg right now, it is 24 degrees. It feels like 29 with that humidity up at 63%. Winds from the north-northwest at 13 kilometers an hour. The pressure is dropping. Now, we've had some thunderstorms that have developed several hours ago, really. We had a line that came through the Brandon area just before the noon hour. We're still seeing some non-severe thunderstorms popping up in the southwest. It looks like we had some thunderstorms producing lightning that went right through the wildfire areas in the southeast, continuing into northwestern Ontario. Heavy rain further south, and they're back, folks, tonight. Air quality alerts issued by Environment and Climate Change Canada. Special air quality statements for areas lighting up in yellow in Manitoba and in Ontario. Areas in purple under an outright air quality warning. I will have more details on that and a look ahead to the rest of your week coming up.
Thanks, Colleen. Mounties and Steinbach had a busy weekend dealing with a spike in incidents during the community's Summer in the City Festival. In total, RCMP charged 35 people with offenses, including speeding, dangerous driving, impaired driving, break and enter, and possession of a weapon. Now, that includes 31 provincial offense notices that were handed out for lesser offenses, such as violating window tint regulations and squealing tires. Some of the incidents include a brawl at the fairgrounds, during which a 20-year-old man allegedly pulled a knife. A woman was struck by a vehicle in a parking lot on Main Street, and a 54-year-old man was beaten with a baton and shot with a BB gun. No arrests have been made in that case. A 23-year-old man is facing charges after police say 2 transit supervisors were assaulted on board a city bus. The incident happened late Saturday afternoon near Fort Street and Graham Avenue downtown. The 2 supervisors boarded the bus to check on a man who was asleep. However, when he woke up, police say that he became violent and allegedly attacked the pair. Officers arrived while the struggle was still ongoing and took him into custody. The 2 supervisors received minor injuries but didn't receive medical treatment. Prime Minister Mark Carney's One Canadian Economy Act is being pushed through the House of Commons this week. If passed, Bill C-5 would grant Ottawa sweeping powers on major infrastructure projects deemed of national interest. And that's not sitting well with some Indigenous leaders. CTV's Daniel Halmerson explains.
The Prime Minister's plan for One Canadian Economy is drawing criticism from some Indigenous leaders.
When we talk about one Canadian economy, First Nations people need to be at the table. We are the first peoples of this land. You need to respect that role and that responsibility that we have to the land.
Bill C-5 aims to reduce interprovincial trade barriers, ease labor mobility, and speed up major infrastructure projects in response to Canada's ongoing trade dispute with the United States. The bill is being pushed through Parliament this week, and leaders like Grand Chief Kyra Wilson of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs are concerned it's happening without meaningful consultation.
When we talk about reconciliation, economic reconciliation, when you talk about, this partnership, nation to nation, you need to come and talk to First Nations leadership.
If Bill C-5 passes, the feds could fast-track approval for major projects like a mine or transportation hub by labeling them as being of national interest. Wilson and others warn these projects could infringe on Indigenous rights and environmental protections.
First Nations leadership are not necessarily against development. There are many projects that leadership may want to be a part of, but that conversation needs to happen.
Other leaders like Manitoba Métis Federation President David Chartrand aren't opposed to Bill C-5.
We are under threat right now. So our economic engines are being threatened. Our future as a country is being threatened. So there's not a doubt you will see the Métis River supporting Bill 5.
However, Chartrand says that support can't come at the expense of Métis sovereignty. Daniel Halmerson, CTV News, Winnipeg.
Winnipeg's mayor says a smarter, faster way to deliver street and sidewalk repairs will be coming to your neighborhood this summer.
This mighty group behind me, in front of you, is going to get a lot of work done.
They're called Neighborhood Action Teams. 3 teams of 6 people will visit every Winnipeg ward between now and October with an area to-do list in hand. The lists are based on the most complaints that the city gets through its 311 service. First proposed by Mayor Scott Gillingham during the 2022 election, the crews are trained and equipped to fix multiple issues in one visit.
You're talking about potholes, obviously. You're talking about curb repairs. You're talking about that safety tree pruning, across the sidewalks, sidewalk heaves, and items such as that.
The crews have already been at work on the street for a few months. The program's cost is $2.7 million. You can visit the city's website to find out when the teams will be in your neighborhood. The public inquiry into the scandal-plagued Winnipeg Police Service headquarters building is moving forward. The project, which saw the city purchase and retrofit the former Canada Post building on Graham Avenue, went tens of millions of dollars over budget. A civil court judge ruled former city CAO Phil Schiegel accepted a bribe from a contractor involved in the project. An inquiry into what happened is planned for winter and spring of next year. But first, the commissioner has to decide who can take part in the process. Individuals and groups have to apply to be granted standing to participate before Friday, August 8th. Then a hearing will be held on Wednesday, September 10th to decide. Thousands of runners gathered for the Manitoba Marathon Sunday morning, raising funds for those living with intellectual disabilities. The 47th annual event began at 7 a.m. at the University of Manitoba's Fort Garry campus. Participants hit the road in several events, including the 42.2-kilometer full marathon. About 12,000 runners came out to the course, which ended at Princess Auto Stadium. Janine Zajac of Winnipeg was the first woman to cross the finish line with a time of 2 hours, 58 minutes, 17 seconds. This is her 3rd time running the Manitoba Marathon and her first win.
Just like pure joy. I mean, I haven't won a race, I think, in like 11 years since high school, so this is pretty freaking cool.
The marathon's executive director says one of the older runners was 88-year-old man who was completing his 30th half marathon. Since the marathon's inception, over $7 million has been raised to support those living with intellectual disabilities. In the shadow of several serious geopolitical issues, the G7 Leaders Summit kicked off today in Alberta.
We're gathering at one of those turning points in history.
And on the sidelines, discussions around the trade dispute between Canada and the U.S. Those details just ahead. Taking a look at the markets now, crude oil lost $1. The Canadian dollar added another 0.2 cents. Gold fell $35, and the TSX is up 64 points. The Dow Jones gained 317 points, and the Nasdaq added 294. Prime Minister Mark Carney officially kicked off the G7 Leaders Summit in Alberta. CTV's Mike Lecontour has the details.
U.S. President Donald Trump says a deal with Canada is achievable soon, but just how he and Prime Minister Mark Carney will get to a resolution remains unclear.
Our primary focus will be trade and trade with Canada, and I'm sure we can work something out. Yeah.
But it's unclear which path the two countries will agree on.
I've always been a tariff. It's simple, it's easy, it's precise, and it just goes very quickly. And I think Mark has a more complex idea, but also very good.
The meeting lasted for more than an hour and focused on trade negotiations and advancing the security relationship between the two countries.
The important thing is that we collectively think we're making progress and coming to a deal that would be in the economic interest of both countries, but we're not there yet, and that's why we reconvened after the meeting with the President and the Prime Minister, and we agreed to reconvene before the end of this week again.
While those bilateral negotiations continue, Prime Minister Mark Carney kicked off the G7 meeting, calling for unity at a time when he says the world is more divided and dangerous.
We're gathering at one of those turning points in history. I think we all recognize that turning point where the world looks to this table for leadership.
But it's already proving difficult, with Trump again suggesting Russia be included around this table. And he falsely claimed Justin Trudeau was prime minister in 2014 when Russia was booted from the G8, when in fact it was Stephen Harper.
The G7 used to be the G8. Barack Obama and a person named Trudeau didn't want to have Russia in, and I would say that was a mistake, because I think you wouldn't have a war right now if you had Russia in.
The war in Ukraine will be part of the discussion on global peace and security, which is scheduled for this evening, as will the talks around the escalating violence in the Middle East. Mike Lecontour, CTV News, Kananaskis, Alberta.
Now, while the G7 leaders are meeting in Alberta, premiers from Eastern Canada and U.S. state governors met in Boston today, talking trade and tariffs. The premiers were invited by New England governors, including the ones for Maine and Massachusetts. Canada is the single largest trade partner of those states. On the agenda, energy, manufacturing, and tourism in light of Trump's trade war. Ontario Premier Doug Ford was on CNN this morning to talk about the meetings.
Well, as we talk to the governors, a lot of governors are saying it's insulting. It's insulting to your closest friend and allies. We love the U.S. I love the U.S. Canadians love Americans. There's one person that is causing this issue, and that's President Trump. Hopefully he'll take another avenue and start mending fences. Because right now, as the governors told us here, they're seeing a drastic decline in Canadian tourism.
Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre will face a leadership review early next year. The review will take place at the party's National Council in Calgary in January. According to the party's constitution, if the leader does not resign after an election loss, a mandatory leadership review is triggered at its next convention. Israel and Iran exchanged missile attacks for a fourth straight day, with Israel warning that the worst is still to come. CTV's Adrian Gabriel has the latest.
News anchor Sahar Ramami is sent running as debris falls and smoke fills the set. These images provided by Iran state broadcasters show the aftermath. The Israeli Defense Force confirming the attack on the Islamic Republic of Iran news network, claiming the building was being used by the Iranian armed forces under the guise of civilian activity. Across Israel, empty streets and the high-pitched blare of air raid sirens have blanketed the country for days now, warning of Iran's continued counterattacks. In the northern Israeli port city of Haifa, authorities there confirm an Iranian airstrike evaded the country's Iron Dome missile defense system, hitting a residential building.
It's pretty shocking to see our little neighborhood, peaceful and quiet, so devastated.
This comes as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu refuses to rule out targeting Iran's supreme leader.
Look, we're doing what we need to do. I'm not going to get into the details. What we're doing is targeting regime sites, nuclear sites, military sites, and ballistic missile sites that are embedded in Tehran.
Israel says 24 people have been killed and more than 500 injured by Iran's missiles and drones. In Iran, the health authority there says at least 224 people have died since the fighting began late last week.
We've been speaking with Canadians in Israel desperate to get out. The airports there and the airspace completely closed. Canadians with families in Iran say their loved ones are simply living moment to moment, just hoping to make it through another night. Adrian Gabriel, CTV News, Toronto.
The black box cockpit voice recorder has been recovered from the crash of the Air India flight. The London-bound Boeing 787 crashed on Thursday soon after takeoff. At least 270 people were killed. The voice recorder captures audio from the cockpit, including pilot conversations and alarms. The U.S. and the U.K. are assisting India in the investigation. We're also learning more about the man accused of killing a Minnesota state lawmaker and her husband and wounding a senator and his wife. 57-year-old Vance Bolter was arrested overnight following a two-day manhunt. He's accused of fatally shooting former Democratic House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband, Mark, at their Minnesota home early Saturday. Shortly after, Senator John Hoffman, also a Democrat, and his wife were shot and wounded at their home about 15 kilometers away. Bolter faces 2 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of attempted murder. 2 European satellites have created the first artificial solar eclipse. This image was released by the European Space Agency. The artificial solar eclipse was created by twin satellites flying 150 meters apart. One satellite blocked the sun, mimicking in the same way that the moon does during a natural total solar eclipse. The other aimed its telescope at the corona that forms a halo of light. The mission has generated 10 successful solar eclipses, allowing scientists to study the sun during totality. Still to come, when hobby meets conservation.
We just fell in love with them when they moved into our neighborhood.
How some local bird enthusiasts are doing their part to help North America's smallest falcon species.
Instability in the south today leads to more stable conditions on Tuesday. Then that back and forth pattern will continue all throughout the long-range forecast for Winnipeg. Showers possible, even thunderstorms on Wednesday. Otherwise, a mix of sun and cloud, 25. Sunny Thursday, 24 degrees, up to 27 on Friday. Mostly cloudy with the return of the possibility of showers. More stable conditions Saturday, 26. A mix of sun and cloud, then the possibility of showers or thunderstorms Sunday with a high of 24 degrees.
We have an update for you now on that multi-vehicle crash on the West Perimeter Highway. Traffic is flowing again as usual at the Perimeter Highway and the Portage Avenue overpass. Now, a short time ago, RCMP were urging people to avoid the area. However, our CTV News crew at the scene says it has since been cleared. RCMP say there were no serious injuries. We'll have the latest up on our website, ctvnewswinnipeg.ca. Many people enjoy reality TV, including a couple of Winnipeggers, but they aren't watching Celebrity Housewives. Their fascination is with a unique type of bird. And as CTV's Devin McKendrick shows you now, they've been watching this show for years now.
Because we would hate to get it wrong. Streaks and dots.
A Winnipeg couple have been doing their part to protect North America's smallest falcon. Kim Bissot and her husband have set up a bird box on their property with a camera inside to monitor the American Kestrel.
The Kestrel is such a feisty little character that we just fell in love with them when they moved into our neighborhood.
They've been live streaming the Kestrel family since 2014 and working with local organizations to collect data on the raptor species.
they're losing their habitat for many different reasons, and so we have put up nest boxes to try to draw them into our area.
As part of their data collecting process, each year new hatchlings in the nest get banded just before they're ready to fly off on their own. The little metal band has a unique number that gets registered and allows researchers across the Americas to see where the bird has been.
That's allowed us to track this over time, so multiple generations, multiple species.
Courtney Schubert with the Assiniboine Park Conservancy says the information from banding not only helps people learn more about the birds, but also what is happening with the global climate.
With things like climate change, one of the things that we're learning from these bands is actually kind of how migration has changed over time.
Bissot and her husband banded 4 new birds this year, bringing their total to 45. The new birds are expected to leave the nest any day and start their own journey out into the world.
We had 2 females and 2 males this year, so that's always good for the population. Keep the species going.
Devin McKendrick, CTV News, Winnipeg.
CTV Skywatch weather brought to you by South Beach Casino and Resort. Visit southbeachcasino.ca.
Non-severe thunderstorms, the order of the day in southern Manitoba. Now, this is all triggered by a cold front associated with a low further east over Ontario, but we're still seeing those thunderstorms firing off tonight. You can see to the northwest there of Dauphin, but even further south as well. Not too far from Brandon. Brandon had a thunderstorm late this morning. Out to the southeast as well, we had some thunderstorms moving through those areas where the wildfires are. We don't need lightning strikes, of course. Further east, we have much heavier, more organized rain further south around Fort Francis in northwestern Ontario, lightning further to the north around Red Lake. But these thunderstorms should stay non-severe. It looks like the more active severe weather stays south of the international border heading into tonight. As I mentioned, Environment and Climate Change Canada's air quality alerts back in effect. Eastern Manitoba lighting up in orange, down into parts of northwestern Ontario under a special air quality statement tonight. A more elevated air quality warning in effect in that area in purple there in northwestern Ontario, but all around those regions, of course, continued problems with wildfire smoke. Not as problematic in the Winnipeg area, though people with sensitivities, of course, will still potentially be experiencing some issues, but air quality, relatively speaking, quite good today, tonight, and that's the expectation for tomorrow and tomorrow night. Up in the northwest we go, where those wildfires continue to burn. Now, dry today, but it looks like there could be a change coming tomorrow. Again, as we get through the next few hours, still the possibility of some showers or thunderstorms, at least for the next couple of hours across the south. Then the risk of thunderstorms diminishes significantly. We shouldn't see much in the way of any thunderstorm activity in the north, but there is a role reversal that happens tomorrow. You'll see not so much in the morning, fairly clear, benign conditions, with the exception of localized smoke in some areas. Further east in parts of northwestern Ontario, some precipitation there. As we get into the afternoon, that's where we start to see some rain crossing parts of the north. But while the precipitation is good, it does also come with the risk of thunderstorms. Lightning strikes, obviously bad. Overnight, we can see some of that rain continuing, but it starts to slump further south again, back into southern Manitoba on Wednesday, where the possibility of showers and more instability returns back to the south. So for tonight, there is still a chance, albeit a low one, of showers or thunderstorms this evening for Winnipeg. Overnight, 14 degrees, winds out of the north at 20 kilometers an hour until about mid-evening, then lighter winds. Mostly sunny for the commute tomorrow, 14 degrees, light winds from the northwest on the way to a high of 25 degrees in the sun. Again, air quality should be, relatively speaking, quite good. Tuesday, a high of, not a high, the UV is a high at 7. Tonight, up in the northeast, Churchill, you'll see some showers down to 8 degrees, clearer, at least sky conditions anyway. Smoky and Island Lake, clearer in Gillam, 8 there, 9 degrees overnight in Thompson, although Gillam likely some smoke in your region as well. Showers, maybe thunderstorms through Gillam and Thompson tomorrow. Thompson, a high of 22. Fog overnight for OCN and the Pod down to 10 degrees. Tomorrow, late in the afternoon, that's when that chance of showers or thunderstorms really comes into effect. Temperatures in the upper 20s, so warming up. Fog possible overnight across the southwest. Overnight lows around the region of 11. Sunshine there tomorrow. Brandon, Dauphin, all those areas up to 25 in the sun. Winnipeg in the southeast, best chance of showers is around Sprague tonight, but we can't rule it out still this evening. But then overnight, partly cloudy. Sunshine tomorrow, highs in the mid-20s. And in northwestern Ontario, showers tonight with the possibility of thunderstorms. 15 overnight. Best chance of showers tomorrow is around Kenora and Fort Francis. Highs in the low to mid-20s. 20s. Now, this is Yuki looking out over the water. That's in Mafeking, Manitoba. That photo is from Anna Lynn. And Christine said she was up at the crack of dawn to get this beauty of a rainbow. And boy, are we glad she did. Thanks for sending that in. That's in Arden, Manitoba. Send us your photos to winnipegweather@ctv.ca.
Thanks, Colleen. Up next, what's behind the rising prices of beef? I'll be speaking with the head of the Manitoba beef producers about how the market is affecting producers and consumers. With temperatures now regularly in the double digits, summer barbecue season has arrived in Manitoba. But if you're going to be grilling steak and hamburgers this year, well, you know that prices are, in some cases, higher than they've been in years past. Joining us now to talk about the state of the beef industry in our province is Carson Callum, the General Manager for Manitoba Beef Producers. Callum, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, maybe you can just tell us, what is the cattle market looking like for producers these days?
Yeah, the outlook's pretty strong, pretty positive. We've had years of, really challenging weather conditions that have led to a bit of an exodus in the sector and kind of guys retiring. But over the last couple of years, we've seen, live cattle prices really improve. And with this, I think the profit outlook is really positive, especially for kind of our cow-calf sector here in the province, that mother cow. So it's really good. We'll see what the weather brings as we get through the production season here, or the growing season in Manitoba, but overall, fairly optimistic.
What are prices looking like for inputs like hay and grain, and is that having any impact on the bottom line?
Yeah, absolutely. Those continue to rise, and whether that's inflationary pressure or trade pressure, it's not easy in the agricultural space. So it's a good thing that the price that we're getting for our product is holding strong, but inputs continue to rise, and that's something that producers continue to deal with, kind of annually.
Well, speaking of trade, Trump's tariffs are still in effect in many areas. Is this having any impact on the Manitoba beef industry?
It was a big worry off the start when some of the, the trade discussions and tariff discussions started to happen. When we think of the beef industry in Manitoba and Canada overall, we're very trade reliant. Over 50% of our product gets exported, and a great portion of that goes to the U.S. The fact that we're in the CUSMA agreement, or the kind of the national agreement that we have with the United States, and we're able to be excluded from that tariff was a positive thing. But the impacts on things like inputs in our sector is still concerning and can impact the producer's bottom line. But overall, it's good that our product isn't being directly impacted as yet.
Mm-hmm. Now, from the consumer perspective, do you have a sense for where prices will be going in the near term and looking ahead to the future?
Yeah, it's hard to fully, estimate what that would happen. But I will say it's really a supply issue. We've seen, as I stated earlier, major exodus in the sector, not just in Manitoba, but across Canada or even across North America when we look down to the drought conditions that producers have dealt with for years in certain parts of kind of cattle country down in the U.S. So with lower animal numbers, it's really less beef in the marketplace, so less supply. So that's a challenge when we look at consumer pricing. So some of this may stabilize as some of the herd sizes stabilize over the next few years, but it is tough to fully estimate.
I mean, with the lower numbers of producers that are in the marketplace, would you imagine then perhaps that there is an opportunity for more people to enter into the industry?
Yeah, I think with the positive outlook, as I said, lots of optimism in the sector. We're currently the highest farm cash receipts in terms of commodities here in the province over the last year. So I think that optimism means that there is some opportunity, but the price of live animals is still a barrier to get in if you're new. I could see some guys growing their herds if they're already in the operation, and we just need to see support systems in place to get some of these young producers that are looking to get in the business, get them thriving.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. Callum, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah.
There's a recall notice to warn you about concerning a baby toothbrush that was sold at Dollarama. Health Canada has issued a recall for the Oracare baby toothbrush, warning of a potential choking hazard. It says that a manufacturing problem could cause the brush to break into pieces. Now, if you have this item, you're urged to stop using it and return it to the store for a refund. Health Canada says Dollarama has received one consumer complaint, but there has been no choking incidents reported to date. A new study adds to the growing body of evidence showing how much of a role fathers play in helping children develop. The study was published today in the journal JAMA Pediatrics. It found fathers' mental distress is slightly associated with subpar child development, including cognitive, social, emotional, language, and physical development. Researchers define mental distress as depression, anxiety, or stress. The findings were especially true in the perinatal period, which spans conception to 2 years postpartum.
Medical Watch is brought to you by Manukin Koster Denture Clinic.
This year's Grey Cup festivities are getting a little help from one of the biggest names in country music. How you can get tickets to see Brad Paisley perform at Canada Life Centre this fall. Spotlight is next.
Spotlight, sponsored by the Casinos of Winnipeg, presenting Tom Papa.
A big name is set to perform at Winnipeg's Grey Cup Festival. Grammy winner and country star Brad Paisley will be here to help the celebration. Paisley will appear in Manitoba as part of his Truck Still Works World Tour. He's scheduled to take the stage November 14th at Canada Life Centre as the Grey Cup Festival's official Friday night headliner. Tickets go on sale to the public Friday at bradpaisley.com. Now, a separate ticket is required for the concert and isn't included in the 3-day 2025 Grey Cup Festival concert series and Team Social Pass. The Grey Cup game is scheduled for November 16th at Princess Auto Stadium. And a rising star in country music has also announced an upcoming Winnipeg date. That's Dasha's hit song, Austin. It was one of the most streamed country songs of 2024. The 25-year-old rose to fame with a line dance that took over TikTok. She's since performed at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade and Dick Clark's Rockin' New Year's Eve. She's slated to perform at Winnipeg's Park Theatre on November 16th. Tickets go on sale Friday. Just visit livenation.com. And Toronto-based rockers Sloan have not one, but 2 concerts set for our province this fall. That's their new single, Live Forever, which will appear on their upcoming album in September. Sloan is scheduled to perform in Brandon's Western Manitoba Centennial Auditorium November 24th and Winnipeg's Burton Cummings Theatre the following day. Tickets will be available Friday on the band's website, sloanmusic.com. Liam Neeson has some big shoes to fill. The action hero is starring in the new Naked Gun movie this summer, and the first full trailer has just been released.
Bill says you served 20 years for man's laughter.
You mean manslaughter?
Must have been quite the joke.
Liam Neeson is playing Frank Drebin Jr., the son of original star Leslie Nielsen. The comedy also stars Pamela Anderson, Paul Walter Hauser from Cobra Kai, and WWE wrestler Cody Rhodes. It hits theaters August 1st. We'll start the week off with some great entertainment. American Ninja Warrior races in at 7 and Say Yes Chef at 9. It's all right here tonight on CTV.
Women's clothing provided by RW & Company. Salon services provided by S&Teak Spa Salon.
Well, the normal high for this time of year for Winnipeg is 24, and that was, in fact, our highest temperature of the day. Tonight, again, that slight chance of thunderstorms this evening, 14 overnight. Tomorrow, sunny, 25 degrees. Then there's the possibility of showers on Wednesday, 25. More stable Thursday, sunny, 24 degrees, up to 27, John, on Friday.
Thanks, Colleen. On a hot day, a can of pop can provide a lot of refreshment. And depending on what happens next, it can also provide a wheelchair. Monday afternoon, 14-year-old Layla received this new high-tech chair. It's the 69th donated by the organization since the program began 27 years ago. Now, as you can imagine, it takes a lot of small tabs to get enough money to buy a new wheelchair. But Tabs for Wheelchairs now has 188 schools, 306 companies, and hundreds of individuals around the city and province saving tabs.
There are approximately 360 bags here. There's another 100 that were taken in Steinbach. So we've got about 460, and that mounted to 23 million tabs, approximately. You can never, right? So that's how many, and so that's super. It's the most we've ever done in 27 years.
Now, Colleen, a fun fact, in 4 of the years, Tabs for Wheelchairs was able to provide 2 wheelchairs for deserving children in the same year. Such a fantastic organization, and good work saving those tabs.
Easy to do. Yeah.
Very easy.
It does a lot of good.
All right, thanks so much. We will see you guys again at 11:30.